Welcome to BNEWS Weekly Special Report. I'm Phil Gallagher, along with my guest today, Michael Wick. Welcome to the program, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Mike is he's in his fifth year as the director of the Burlington Public Library. He's a graduate. He attended IU, which is not Idaho University, but Indiana University, and is a graduate of Simmons College with a degree in
Masters of Library Science.
Masters of Library Science. Okay. One of the things about books, one particular author I love is James Michener, and one thing about Michener's books is, first of all, they're very thick, and secondly, he begins most of his sagas in the primordial soup, you know, right from the very beginning of the volcano that created whatever he was writing about. So we're going to start that on the library subject today with that kind of an attitude and talk about, well, I guess the first library was a cave with scratches on the walls, and then the second one that is recorded, the oldest library, is Ashburnapal's library. He was an Assyrian guy in what is present-day Iraq. Mm-hmm. And he had 33,000 cuneiform tablets.
Yeah.
So we've come a long way from cuneiform tablets, but up until 20 years ago, the library concept was basically the same thing. You had a storehouse of knowledge, and you brought people in. How have we begun to change over the last 2 decades?
Yeah, well, I think, kind of one of the major changes that happened even before, 20 years ago, before the show you and I were talking, and you mentioned Carnegie and the Carnegie libraries, and it was the transition from this information being privately held to being publicly held. Mm-hmm. And so that's really the birth of modern public libraries.
Right. Well, Franklin actually in Philadelphia had the first subscription library, I think, where you could go in and borrow a book.
Sure, but as a subscription library, publicly you could anybody could join, but they still had the fee.
Be a member, right?
Yeah, they still had the fee to join, and I think that's something that public libraries really wear as a badge of pride, is the fact that it is free for all. The famous kind of motto that you'll see over a lot of libraries. I think the Boston Public Library as well, free for all emblazoned over the entrance.
And in terms of the world, world history, I mean, that's a relatively new concept. Yeah. And some nations still don't have it.
Absolutely. We have, one of my favorite experiences is seeing someone's mind getting blown when they're a recent immigrant to America and they come in and they come up with a stack of books and they'll ask how much does it cost in order to check these books out, and you can see this sense of wonderment when it clicks and they realize that everything in the space is free and they can have as much of it or little of it as they want. And so it's still to today, as you said, not common throughout the world that the libraries are freely accessible for anybody who wants to walk in. So it's still a unique situation in America to have vast majority of our libraries to be publicly accessible. And I think in the state of Massachusetts, it even goes beyond that. A lot of the state's regulations are that if you accept public state funding, then you have to make your collection available to anyone who lives in the state of Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So like I grew up in Indiana, we're in a very different system. We were in a county system. If we wanted to go and check a book out at another county library, we had to pay a fee in order to join their library system. But in the state of Massachusetts, you can walk into any library in Western, Central, Southern, Northern Mass, and become a library
and that
subscriber.
Goes for the university system too, as well.
Yeah, the university systems. I don't know exactly what the reasoning behind it was, but a lot of the universities participate in this as well. Mm-hmm. Even within our library network, we have university libraries that are a part of our public library network. So the Merrimack Valley Library Consortia, which Burlington's a part of, there's 36 libraries in total that have this sharing of information. And we have some college libraries as a part of that. Same thing, I worked in the Noble Library. It's the North of Boston Library Exchange when I was working at the Peabody Institute Library before coming to Burlington. And we had North Shore Community College as a part of our collection. So it's the reach and the ability to obtain this information is really optimized, I would say, in the state of Massachusetts.
Right. So for 2,700 years since Ashburnapal, the librarian's job essentially has been to be the shopkeeper of the store of knowledge, and to try and reach out to patrons to get them in there and share that knowledge.
Yeah.
That's changing dramatically now, is it not?
Oh, absolutely. Libraries used to be the gatekeepers of information in a lot of ways. They used to be, the people who would have to ensure that a book, which, when in, say, the early 1900s, it cost a lot of money to purchase these, and their collections weren't very large. So it was a real point of interest of the librarian to make sure that that book was returned in good condition so that it could be reused. And so I think that that's almost kind of where the stereotype of the scolding librarian comes from. It was out of necessity, making sure that these books weren't returned in a poor condition.
You dog-eared one of the pages.
Right.
God
in the
help
book.
you.
Yeah, exactly. You get the wrath and ire of the librarian. Or you return it late. That could be very important. But now, libraries have changed. I think that the change is necessary because of the access to information. But also, the publishing has become cheaper. It's become much more accessible. Our budgets have increased than what they were. If you look at old town reports about what the library used to get, it wasn't much, and it wasn't much compared to the rest of the town budget as well.
Well, there wasn't an enormous proliferation of new printing. I guess we could thank Gutenberg for that way back.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the amount, the volume of books that are published now is overwhelming. It's staggering. The Library of Congress collects, all of the books, or they attempt to collect all of the books that are printed. And I was just reading something recently where they were talking about the difficulty of that, not only because of the amount of information that's published, but really the ability to store it.
Right,
yeah,
right.
yeah, and to do that ad infinitum, to store it throughout all time for access.
Is the book becoming obsolete? I mean, for instance, I have it out in my jacket, but I mean, I'm sure you do.
Device,
right,
yeah.
I carry 600-700 books with me.
Yeah.
And if I've got an internet connection, I can get Gutenberg.org and I can get Amazon or whatever. So is the printed word on papyrus or papyrus, however you pronounce that, or just paper stock, is that becoming obsolete?
Not at all. No. It was interesting to see, the advent of digital forms of media. What that's done to different forms of media. You had newspapers. Newspapers have really struggled with coming back from what happened with news going online. The music industry, was really struggling. Those were the two major industries that were hit, and they were hit really hard with the advent of digital media. Not just the ability to make it digital, but really for the consumer to consume it,
right.
To enjoy it.
Well, the profits were hit, but there's been a greater proliferation actually of the printed word and the songwriters and performances. And YouTube is a perfect example.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the amateur becoming much more popular, having a greater audience, has really changed that way. And publishing is seeing that too, with the advent of fanfic. So like 50 Shades of Grey, which was, New York Times bestseller for months, if not years, started off as fan fiction for I'm trying to remember the name of the Twilight series.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, that has led to even more publishing. But what the publishing industry has found is that this real retraction of people becoming readers as the accessibility of digital material really expanding didn't occur. And in fact, what they're finding is that millennials are among some of the largest of their market for paper book purchasing. And so it was interesting to see that what happened to some of these other media industries really didn't happen with the book industry. And I think that that really speaks to the fact that books are among some of our world's oldest technology that's still currently in use. I mean, the wheel, fire, and books. These printed and bound materials.
And this has enabled a proliferation of more and more authors of any ilk, of any genre, of any experience level.
Yeah, genres are exploding. Niche publishing is really, the long tail of Malcolm Gladwell is really expanding.
J.K. Rowling, who produced a whole, I wouldn't call it a genre because there were witches before, but there certainly wasn't a witch community in a witch college.
Yeah, and I think her success as well really made itself evident to publishing that they weren't going away. Even the devices, what I've found is that it's not just because it's an old technology that people are having a hard time giving up. I think that this was something that I felt at the beginning when digital technology really started changing the way that publishing was thinking of itself, was that it really wasn't going to be able to replicate the printed page. And even if you work with, and I do myself, I'm reading things online, I'm reading them on iPads, on Kindles, on my phone. And it just doesn't replicate.
It doesn't replicate sitting by the fire on a cold winter's day with a blanket in your easy chair reading a book. Just can't replicate it.
Yeah, exactly. Or the findability, like your ability to browse through a book and find that one passage that you were looking for. And in your muscle memory, as you're flipping through the book where that's located. It was somewhere around here. You have that kind of physical connection to the memory as you were reading the book. When you have it on an iPad, there's none of that. And so what does it give you? It says, well, how about you search by keyword or whatever?
Or you've previously bookmarked it, maybe.
Yeah, but who does that really when they're,
I do a number of pages by accident, that blue thing shows up. What the heck, where'd that come from?
Yeah, and even if you're not thinking of it at the time, it's just that ability to, flip through the book or even see where you are, just the visual representation of your progress through the book as you're reading it. There's so many things that it just doesn't really replicate that I think that other media was able to replicate really easily, like music. I mean, I'm a vinyl collector. I enjoy the feel of vinyl, but I have a huge digital storehouse on my phone. I have over 50,000 different songs that I've uploaded from CDs that I've purchased and uploaded into my cloud that I can listen to. And really, the difference, maybe the audio quality is a little different because I've got a better speaker system on my vinyl collection, but honestly, it's not that much of a difference. Whereas reading in print and digital really does make a difference.
Well, the key feature of a library too, unlike you can browse naturally on your electronic device, but you can't browse shelf after shelf after shelf like you can in a library.
Yeah, absolutely.
So your task in years gone by was to get people in there and do that browsing and have them come in and examine this warehouse of knowledge. Now, reaching out, is that the name of the game?
Yeah, I think that libraries have always suffered from this kind of donut hole of users. And what that is that's pretty much from high school through young adulthood. We tend to drop off our demographic. Young families come in because they're wanting to get books for their children, and children are just these vacuums of information, especially in their younger years, and you can't afford all those books that they're reading at that age. I mean, even myself, we've got a very large collection for my son at home, but I'm bringing books home weekly for him. And then older adults, when you
time
have
on their hands.
Yeah, exactly. You have that time. Your family's away. And you're able to sit down and read a book. I wish I had as much time at my point of life, but I don't. As well as realizing the value of $1 and saying, well, I don't need to purchase all of these books when I can easily just go to the library and read them. And then social connections and whatnot. But so it's that young adult into young professional where it drops out, and it's largely because people move at that point. They have other things, other social obligations that are really pulling them away. And so that's something that we've always, I think, as an institution, worked on to try and strengthen. But it's difficult. It is difficult to create the draw.
Now, in the last couple of years, you've addressed this reach-out issue via various forms of programming. I know you have collaboration with BCAT. What are you doing in those areas?
Yeah, so when I started as director, I really wanted to go out into the community. I wanted to do two things. First, I wanted to take the library out into the community, take it beyond its four walls. But then also I wanted to create partnerships in the community and bring them in to the library. As a former reference librarian, I think one of the strengths of librarians is recognizing that they don't know everything, contrary to popular knowledge. People think that librarians are,
Well,
always...
you're not a 75-year-old librarian.
Yeah, maybe not. I'm not that wise yet. Yeah, give me 35 years or something. But contrary to popular knowledge, we know where to look for the information. We don't hold all the information in our head. We're not even jack of all trades necessarily. We just know where to look, and we know, kind of what experts in the field to go towards, or what might be reputable sources, or something like that. So that kind of influenced my thinking as a library director, recognizing where our strengths and where our weaknesses were, and helping bolster weaknesses of other institutions with our strengths, and helping bolster our weaknesses through other strengths. And so that's really been the intent behind all of the community partnerships that we've created. And now with the advent of COVID, it's been interesting because I thought that it was going to be more of a challenge to develop those partnerships. But it's actually become easier to develop those partnerships. I don't know if it is this lack of social connection that we have because of our isolation, but it's been much more easy to create these partnerships.
Well, give us an example. I think Marnie, the assistant director, has established a collaboration with somebody who reached out to us.
Yeah, so we've got a couple that we've been working on the adult programming areas, which Marnie Smith, the assistant director, handles our adult programming, as well as the reference department. So she had a couple of connections that we've made. The first is the Harvard Retirees Association. And so Marnie has been doing our programming, our Third Thursday programming, which is supported through the Friends, but also expanding quite a bit more programming beyond that Third Thursday. And the success of our programming has really drawn some attention. And so the individuals who participated in programming had seen it, and they were, members of the Harvard Retirees Association, or I'm sorry, the Alumni Association. And now we're partnering with them, providing programs to our community, but also to their community. And so they're helping us fund these programs. Another partnership that we've created is with the Burlington High School. So at the beginning of the school year, we had Shannon Janovitz, who's the chair of the English department, reached out, and she's looking to integrate topics of social justice into the curriculum of the school. And so we've been working with them, as well as 9 other libraries in the Merrimack Valley area, on topics of social justice. And this is a very interesting opportunity because among libraries, we tended to do our own programming and kind of do it to the exclusion of everyone else, of every other library. There weren't really many opportunities to partner anyway, because say that you're in Billerica, you're the director of the Billerica Public Library, I'm the director of the Burlington Public Library, and we want to partner on a program. well, whose library do we have it at? You know, it's kind of just this.
Whose money do we spend?
Yeah. So do I spend less because we're going to have it at your library, and you know, my patrons may not come there, you know, because of the distance or whatever. But we've been able to partner so much more capably than we ever have because we're doing it in the virtual space.
Right. Well, now everybody's in tune with virtual meetings, you know, all of the Zoom and whatever the names of the other ones are.
Yeah.
Everybody seems to, even people my age now, are coming on board and saying, hey, this FaceTime, all of these things aren't a bad idea when you can put a collective of people together pretty rapidly.
Makes meetings a little easier too. Sometimes, you know.
Not if your hearing isn't very good.
Well, it's been interesting. So we have a lot of our meeting space that we have in the library. This is something that we talked about a lot when the library first closed to the public and restrictions were such that, you know, we can't have people come in and use our meeting space. You know, the question was you know, how's this going to disrupt their activities? Even like the Friends of the Library who used our space. And when I was on the first Zoom meeting with the Friends, as they started reconvening their meetings in the cyberspace, I don't think there was a single person there who didn't say, this is so much easier because we can, you can put your dinner aside, you can walk over to the computer, turn it on, and you're in a meeting. You don't have to brave the elements in order to get out
sit
or
in
anything
jammies.
like that. You just have to get a fake background on you and you're okay, you know?
Right.
Wear a decent shirt and you're all right.
Now, the different platforms. Now, social media has extended, you know, Instagram, FaceTime, Facebook, Snapbook, as Bill Belichick would say, TikTok, all of these different things.
Yeah.
Have you expanded and put your offerings on all of those different platforms?
Yeah, we're not on TikTok, but it's funny. I was actually just talking with our young adult librarian, and she said she'd played with the idea. But so we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And so,
and your own website, of course, you put your videos up.
Yeah, exactly. The difficult thing is that you don't want, with a smaller staff, you know, we have 32 staff members, we can't give as much time as we want to every social media platform that exists. So we've been very intentional on which platforms we've decided to put our efforts into. So we did add Twitter to the list after several years of interest, but just wanting to make sure that we had the ability to handle it. So yeah, what we do now with our programming is that we broadcast it on Zoom, and if we can, we broadcast it on Facebook Live as well, so that people can go back and watch our programming. And the idea behind that was that you know, you don't have to have a Facebook account in order to watch our videos. You know, of course, Facebook does ask you to create an account. Right. That's with every other platform as well. But you know, we haven't been able to do that with all of our programming, just because sometimes you know, the platform doesn't really lend itself to it, or the program doesn't lend itself to it, or sometimes the performer restricts us from
copyright, etc.
Yeah.
But how are you producing them now? Do you have in-house production capability like BCAT? Are you doing it on iPhones? I know the various librarians do book reviews and things of that sort. How are you producing those, and how can we upgrade that to higher levels?
Well, so at the beginning, just like everybody else, we were trying to figure it out from step one. And so what we do now is everything's done on either laptops or iPads. Typically, it's much more laptops. We usually have about 2 staff members who are handling our programs because there's one staff member who actually handles the performer and, you know, the introductions and all of that. And then there's a second staff member who's kind of working behind the scenes, making sure that it gets uploaded to Facebook Live or you know, assisting with.
So the quality of those programs that I'm viewing on Facebook, you're doing with a laptop.
2 people and a laptop. Yeah. Not quite 2 turntables and a microphone, but yeah, close.
Very close.
Yeah. So it's, yeah. I mean, we can do a lot with, you know, laptops, and that's been really the interesting thing about all of this is how accessible this technology is. You know, setting up a couple of extra lights so that we can be well lit. We've got in our Fogelberg A programming area, that's now set up as kind of our permanent children's program, the story times, all of that. And we've got a couple of lamps that are up, nice photography production lamps.
You don't need a roadie.
Yeah, no, it's set up, and they sit down. They've got a little backdrop behind them, and they sit down and they just run with it. And we change the curtain every once in a while to keep it fresh.
Right. All right, we've only got a few minutes left. I want to talk about the budget. Patrons are important. We've had a tough year, obviously, because of COVID, but you were still able to do
a lot.
You did a lot.
Yeah.
Curbside, I guess, would be the number one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the budget, we've been very lucky, I think, in the town of Burlington, that when the discussion came around, we were preparing for the worst, but I think we got the best in a lot of ways. Now, next year, that remains to be seen. I know that, the selectmen just passed tax increase. And so, hopefully we'll be able to, weather another year through that. And I really greatly appreciate all the support that townspeople have shown. Right. It's been interesting. Our donations have gone up, even without our solicitation. Donations have really been on a rise. And so I think that that it's just the generosity of our townspeople and how they view the library as important. It's just that telling.
No, COVID was somewhat fortuitous from a library standpoint in terms of the amount of work that had to be done in the building.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also gotten quite a bit of attention from our town's facilities department. So there's been some significant upgrades that people may or may not notice. The most noticeable one would be the lighting that's been replaced throughout the town building. In fact, I think John Sanchez from the DPW the project is going out throughout the entire town, all town buildings through a grant to replace everything with LED lights. We were closed just this past Monday because we had the rooftop units that were replaced, and so they're going to be now doing a second set of projects where they're going to be replacing all of the thermostatic controls and all the vent controls throughout the building.
So once you get up and running for next year, when we open, all of this will have been accomplished without any further disruption.
And honestly, you had mentioned prior to us coming in here, that it was somewhat fortuitous being able to be closed so that we could get these projects done. It would be nice to be able to do more. The budget, of course, is a big restriction of that. But I think that we've done more than almost any other library in our surrounding area while we've been closed. Not just to improve the building, but all of the services that we've provided to the public. Because the first thing that we did right out the gate, and this is what I told my staff when we met the first time after we all went home, rather suddenly, the state announced, boom, these restrictions are coming down. Everybody's getting out of the office space. And I looked to my staff and I said, we need to do programming. We need to do as much programming as possible. We need to get as much expertise as we can on these platforms. We need to figure it out so we won't get Zoom bombed. We need to figure it out so that our kids, because we're at home and we have kids at home, aren't going to be interrupting. But we have to deliver quality programming because people are going to be looking for something to do. And we did.
One last question.
Yeah.
We've only got a minute. On the collection itself, how do you determine the collection? How do you refreshen it? What is that process?
So we look to quite a few different professional publications where they review Publishers Weekly, Book List. There's one more that I'm blanking on, or Kirkus is the name of that. And so these are all written by reviewers, and so we're able to go through those. We see multiple reviews typically for the same book. And make the selection from that. Of course, we're always looking at the recommendations of our members as well, of our community. And then, we just go through the purchasing process.
How much money are we investing in the collection on an annual basis? How much money is the town investing?
So right now our budget's around $180,000, and the reason of that is because there's a requirement that our library expends a certain percentage
so that we can get state funding.
So that we can be certified. So that number is 12% right now. It's 13% as a baseline, but because of our operating hours, it's 12% of the budget.
Okay, unfortunately, we've
Ooh,
run out of time.
that was
I'd like
fast.
to thank our guest, Michael Wick, Director of the Burlington Public Library. Thank you, Mike. We look forward to the doors opening again soon.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Have a pleasant evening. Thank you for joining us.